We have already studied the main international instruments regulating the rights of women. In the present lesson, we will deal with UN Women, the main international body charged with safeguarding and promoting women's rights across the world. After sketching the evolution of international institutions devoted to the rights of women, we will study UN Women, ending with a reference to one of its most recent programs for global political action. The history of human institutions, domestic or international, has been made by means of trials and errors. United Nations itself is the second attempt to establish an international organization to achieve peace and cooperation between countries, after the historical failure and demise of its predecessor, the League of Nations. Yet, within the United Nations, there had not been any major agency especially devoted to upholding and advancing the rights of women, until the creation of UN Women. As seen in a previous lesson, the rights of women became a concern of the international community after the First World War, having the right to vote being relatively secured for women thanks to the struggle of the first wave of feminism. Upon its foundation in 1919, the International Labour Organization, or ILO, immediately addressed the problems of female workers. That same year, a convention on the employment of women before and after childbirth was signed. In 1944, the ILO issued a declaration stating that all human beings, irrespective of race, creed, or sex, have the right to pursue both their material well-being and their spiritual development. The ILO would continue to recognize and uphold the rights of female workers through the rest of the 20th century. In the wake of the New World Order established after the Second World War, gender concerns were also consecrated in the United Nations Charter of 1945. In its preamble, the Charter recalls the determination of the peoples of the United Nations to reaffirm faith in the equal rights of men and women. Furthermore, its Article 1 states as one of the purposes of the new organization the promotion of human rights for all, without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. In 1946, the first subcommission on the status of women was established under the supervision of the Commission on Human Rights, in turn answerable to the UN Economic and Social Council. Within a few months, the subcommission formally became the Commission on the Status of Women. Its mandate was to prepare recommendations and report to the Economic and Social Council on the promotion of women's rights. After this, the UN Secretariat created its own specialized bureau on the subject, first under the name of Section on the Status of Women, and later as the Division for the Advancement of Women. Some landmarks in the record of the Commission on the Status of Women are the signing of the Convention on the Political Rights of Women in 1952, two conventions on married women signed in 1957 and 1962, the adoption by the UN General Assembly of the Declaration on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women in 1967, the Declaration of 1975 as the International Women's Year, thereupon being held the first World Conference on Women in Mexico City. The adoption by the UN General Assembly of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, in 1979. The Second World Conference on Women in 1980. The creation of the UN Fund for Women in 1984. the Third World Conference on Women in 1985, the adoption by the UN General Assembly of the Declaration for the Elimination of Violence Against Women in 1993, and the renowned Beijing Fourth World Conference on Women, held in 1995, and its subsequent platform for action, which is monitored by the Commission on the Status of Women. On June 30, 2010, the UN General Assembly approved its resolution A64L56, which created UN Women. This new entity would merge UN agencies devoted to gender equality, including the Office of the Special Advisor on Gender Issues and Advancement of Women, the Division for the Advancement of Women of the Secretariat, the UN Development Fund for Women, and the International Research and Training Institute for the Advancement of Women. According to the General Assembly's resolution, the mandate of UN Women is to provide, through its normative support functions and operational activities, guidance and technical support to all member states across all levels of development and in all regions at their request on gender equality, the empowerment and rights of women, and gender mainstreaming. The new entity is to apply as its framework the UN Charter and the 1995 Beijing Declaration and its platform for action, among others. The main roles of UN Women are the following. First, to support intergovernmental bodies at the UN level, such as the UN Commission on the Status of Women. Second, to help UN member states to implement gender equality standards in their territories, as well as to forge effective partnerships with civil society. And third, to lead and coordinate gender equality efforts within the UN itself. Regarding this last role, in 2014, the UN Secretary General informed that gender parity within the United Nations machinery was not achieved, women amounting to 41.8% of the organization's staff. Yet, UN Women has 80.1% female staff, followed by the International Court of Justice, 51.7%, and by UNICEF, 49.1%. In order for the UN to lead by example, the Secretary General recommended to implement temporary special measures aimed at securing substantial equality within the organization. Special measures will be studied in a future lesson of this course. Structurally, UN Women counts with an intergovernmental governance structure, providing normative and operational policy guidance. This structure comprises the UN General Assembly, the Economic and Social Council, and the Commission on the Status of Women. UN Women also has an executive board consisting of 41 members from all over the world. In charge of UN Women is an executive director or undersecretary general, appointed for a 4-year term by the UN Secretary General in consultation with state members. The first executive director of UN Women in the period 2010 to 2013 was Michelle Bachelet, formerly the President of Chile for the period 2006 to 2010, and currently re-elected for the 2014 to 2018 period. Since 2013, the current executive director of UN Women is Phumzile Lambo Kuka, a South African anti-apartheid activist, parliamentarian, and minister. In September of 2014, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and UN Women Global Goodwill Ambassador Emma Watson officially launched the solidarity movement for gender equality known as He for She. The philosophy underlying this initiative is that boys and men should view gender equality as a human rights issue that requires their participation and commitment. Gender equality is thus envisaged as a common goal shared with girls and women, which ultimately benefits the whole of humanity. The declared goal of He for She is to mobilize 1 billion men to accelerate gender equality using innovative online, offline, and mobile phone technology. It also comprises the Impact 10 per 10 per 10 program, a strategy aimed at engaging global leaders in the public, corporate, and academic sectors for them to commit to gender equality in their respective fields. Thank you for your attention. Please visit mooCchile.com and watch our next lesson.